Aloha, fitness friends. I'm Leanne Watanabe, and welcome to the Level Up lifestyle, where we transform from the inside out using mindset, macros-based nutrition, and movement, all coming from a place of love, self-love, and not loathe. And I'm super excited because today I have a special guest, and I'm so glad she agreed to be on my podcast with me. Her name is Franca. And I want to welcome you to the Level Up with Lifestyle podcast. How you doing?
Oh, thank you so much, Leanne. I'm just so excited to be here. I think you're amazing. Your story is so incredibly inspiring. I know, whoever follows you or who knows your story is just, I mean, it's incredible. So I'm just inspired by you.
That's so funny you mentioned that because I am actually inspired by you. And this is really one of the benefits I feel of social media nowadays, because I know there's a lot of, social media can get a lot of a bad rap. But I had found you probably through, and we'll get into it through like the circle of the Wonder Woman and all this stuff. And I was like amazed because at the end of the day, you had to do all that work and you had an amazing transformation. And we'll get into that now. But the first thing I want to do is tell people where they can follow you on Instagram and then to tell us about your Instagram handle.
Okay, so yeah, my Instagram handle is zonedog66 3.0. Um, and the handle is just kind of like a play on my last name. So my last name is Mazzoni. And then so zone and then dog. So dog is just kind of like a slang for friend.
Okay.
Um, and so
Yeah, like
yeah,
my homie, like you're my dog, my
yeah,
homie. Okay,
yeah.
got it.
And then the 3.0 is just kind of like you know, the different levels that I've kind of gone through in this journey. So I'm using that my Instagram page to kind of document my journey. And so with each kind of phase, I change the number kind of.
So can you remember when you started that page then? What year?
So it was probably kind of like early on, like way back in 2012, I think. And it was kind of like morphed. I wasn't really posting anything. Just kind of like, using it to follow different accounts. And then I just kind of, started to use it. It just kind of like manifested in, a way for me to document my journey personally for myself. Um, yeah.
So was that 3.0 that changed? What year was that
That
added on?
that was actually last year.
Okay, so 2023. I love it. Okay, so gang, I will put in the show notes where you can find her on Instagram, but I always like to ask that because everybody has their unique spin on their handles. And again, the whole point of this podcast is to have you folks follow her so you can see the amazing work that she put in over the last several years. But before we get into that, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, where are you living and what do you do besides macros and muscles?
Okay. So I actually live in the Midwest in Illinois. It's a small town called Champaign. I don't know if anyone's heard of it, but it's basically a college town where the University of Illinois is. And so what I do professionally is I work for internal audit for the hospital here, which is a level 1 trauma hospital. And so I basically ensure that everyone is doing what they're supposed to be doing. um, I audit processes and just make sure that we're in compliance with all of our regulatory requirements, and just, ensuring that our patients get the best treatment possible. So that's kind of like what I do for a living. So I help solve problems, I guess.
That's so cool. That's great. What are your any hobbies or passion projects you have outside of work and food and fitness right now?
So I guess, just I think I talk a little bit about this. So um, my passion is to promote positivity in all areas of my life. I have struggled with general anxiety disorder and depression for a big part of my life. And so, there was a period in my life where it was just very, very difficult to just get up in the morning. And so I sought treatment for that, and just spoke with counseling and therapists, and basically did some CBT training. And, that's just become my passion. It's just kind of like, I think a lot of people kind of think that to be almost like a taboo or something. But there's no shame in seeking treatment. So, um, yeah, I guess that's one of my passions. And then,
So CBT real quick, is that cognitive behavioral therapy for people who may not know?
yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I love
It just helps you kind of like rewrite those negative thoughts in your head. And you don't have to suffer in in silence. So
I love that we're talking about that because, like you said, I think nowadays it's a lot more open, especially with coaches that we've worked with and people that we meet. That mindset and what we think
yes,
and the stories we tell ourselves and the upper limit beliefs that has a big that is like the running the show, right? And so it's a lot more. I think we hear a lot more talk about it now, but even me, I'm in Hawaii. I am part Hawaiian and very culturally, it's very taboo. My parents never understood why I decided to seek out therapy. They're like, why are you telling your problems to strangers? So I'm really glad that you're talking about it and that now you've made it one of your passion projects is to promote positivity. And we totally see it in all your stories. Even when you're struggling, how you can reframe the crappy thing and like, okay, how do we kind of come out of it? Did you
right.
have other passion projects or hobbies that you're into? I think, did you get another little dog or you got a new dog?
Yes. Yeah, so I got a little puppy. She is a Pomsky, which is a Pomeranian and Husky mix,
Love it.
and she's like the cutest little thing. But yeah, we can she almost derailed me in my progress, so we can talk about that. But
Okay.
um but
What's
yeah,
her name?
she's um her name is Berry, which is short for strawberry.
I love it. And then you have two dogs?
Yes, and then the other dog I have is Bella, and she was kind of like my COVID puppy. Everyone I think got a puppy back in COVID 2020.
Right.
Um, and so yeah, she's just the best puppy. She's about 3 now, so yeah.
She's a young girl still. I love animals. I mean, if people follow me, they kind of know I'm borderline animal hoarder. One of my passion projects, fostering cats. We have a big feral cat problem in Hawaii. And I realize that I
Oh.
foster fail because I do a lot more keeping than fostering. So I'm working on that. But they're the best. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and both of my puppies I adopted from a shelter too.
Thank
So
you
the
for
same shelter, yeah.
That's so good. And what ages were there when you adopted them?
They were both like 2 months
Oh,
or
puppy,
10
puppy.
weeks. Yeah, so they were,
Oh, so
yeah,
you
they were
went through
puppy
all
puppy.
the you went through all the growing pains, the puppy growing pains.
Yeah, that's what I'm going through now.
Oh, you are. Wait, is the chewing or the is it the chewing and the peeing everywhere?
So, yeah, like just trying to get her potty trained has been a challenge.
I know.
In the morning, just leaving to get my training in the morning has been a challenge. Um, so yeah, I had to actually talk to my coach about it
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
help me.
It's a lot of work. I think for a long time I had three senior guys and at one time, and that was a handful because they all started to age at a certain time. And then I hadn't had like a puppy in probably 20 years. And my husband
Oh,
home a puppy, and I had forgotten about all the puppy problems. And I'm like, oh, so this is a lot of work and a lot of destruction initially. But when at around 2, she finally came around, but like anything, like what you and I both know, what we do, consistency, just keeping at it, that pays off, right?
yeah, for sure. And she, like you said, she derailed me in January big time. Like,
Right.
um, it was very hard to be consistent routine in the morning because I like to work out in the morning, and she was very much attached to me.
Yeah.
And it was hard to just kind of leave her in the crate. And
Yeah.
yeah, my coach gave me a tip. She's like, we love our puppies, we tend to humanize them.
Yep.
But you know, they'll be okay if they're in the crate. And from then on, it kind of like she helped me realize that I was kind of making excuses for a bit. Um because I also was not getting up earlier because it was so cold here. And just trying to get my workout like throughout the day. And I learned very rapidly that that doesn't work for me. What works for me is getting it out of the way in the morning and not having to kind of like negotiate with myself, right? That I have to do it.
I love
And it also,
Go ahead.
yeah, no, and also like it just helps relieve my stress. And once I get that out of the way, I just feel like I can tackle anything else that happens during the day, right? Like you
Yep,
just feel so strong after.
exactly. Well, it fills up your cup.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't realize. I think, it's very hard to get started. But what I always try to tell clients or people out there, if you're struggling, we really got to just get that little nudge to get started, because once you get going, right, it's like pushing the boulder up a hill. It's a lot of effort for very little movement, but sooner or later, right, we reach the top, then that boulder pushes over and it snowballs. But let's get into like your transformation then. Let's tell our viewers a little bit about your backstory. Are you someone who's battled weight forever? Have you tried all the fad things? Were you athletic your whole life and then something happened? Let's hear the backstory.
Okay. So yes, I have been mostly obese my entire life. Like I never thought of myself as an athlete. Um, I was always the person that would kind of like be picked last in gym class.
Me
Or
too. I
I would
hated
like,
PE, right? You're like dreading, we call it PE here. We're like, I was just dreading, like, oh my, every period.
yeah. And so I would kind of like hide in the back whenever we like did softball. I would play outfield and pretend to catch the ball. Um, but so yeah, I basically when I was little, I never really learned how to process my emotions, right? Like um I had just kind of like you know, without getting into it too much, but like I had a parent who suffered with bipolar disorder. So like there was a lot of disruption in the household with that. And so my other parents spent a lot of time managing that. And so I kind of like didn't want to add to any of that, right? So I always tried to be the good girl or kind of like not make any more problems. But I felt like I never got um, attention or so I would just kind of like be frustrated a lot and I didn't know how to express that. And so the only thing I knew how to do is to kind of relieve that is kind of like to make myself feel good in the moment is to turn to food, right?
That's
um and
so common.
yeah, and so I was not very active and just grown up in the 80s. Um, there was Thin Within it was really big. I did Weight Watchers where they had the point systems, and that helped me lose 20 pounds. But eventually I would regain it. I did the pineapple and cottage cheese in the morning, and um, I think I did like tomatoes in the afternoon. And then when I got home, I would be so starving and ravenous that I would binge. I'd be sitting in front of the refrigerator just eating whatever, right? Um, and then that cycle just continued and continued. So, yeah, it's a trend. All those. Um, So I never really learned how to maintain the weight. Like I would lose the weight for some sort of event, like 2 or 3 months. Like there was a wedding or a concert, or I wanted to get into something. And once that happened, I would eventually just go back and say, "Oh, I can eat now," right?
Right.
And I never really learned how to successfully sustain that weight loss because I did it in drastic measures. Um, so then there was kind of like the body positivity movement
Yes.
that
Yep.
took off, right? In the like 2012, 2014 era. And, I learned to kind of accept my body being kind of like in a bigger body and then just learning to live with intuitive eating, where I was at my heaviest. Like, I'm only 4'11. So I was pushing like maybe 180, 185, which is pretty heavy for someone my size. And then I lost about 20 pounds. And so I stayed about 165, 155 for
Mhm.
several years. Just, learning to accept myself and liking myself the way I was, right? Because I learned that once I lost weight, I thought all my problems would be magically disappear, right? That's not how it works. All my problems were still there. I was just a smaller version of myself, right? um, so I learned to really start appreciating and liking myself the way I was. Um, and once I was able to get comfortable with that, and then kind of like going through some therapy, um, I was able to kind of like start looking into getting healthy for myself. So, they talk about having a strong why.
Yes.
And my why is that I wanted to like be healthy in my retirement and throughout the rest of my life. Both my parents ended up being really sick, having like really very hard lives. as they aged. My mom had a stroke and she ended up being in a nursing home, and I have those memories with me, and they terrify me. um so that's my why, is just being able to be independent and healthy as long as I can.
Five.
Um right. And so but yeah. Um
That's
and
that's amazing because you had done so much of the hard mindset inside work prior to even finding your coach and stuff. Now, was that something, and you had said you kind of spearheaded it yourself and you were able to kind of like really focus on, look, I need to work on loving me and my body through all the seasons and shapes and sizes before I can go on and do anything. Was that like something that you felt strongly about, or was that something that was kind of coming out as you were going through therapy, or is that more like self-driven, that desire?
there just came a time in my life where I was like, because I just was very always so self-critical of myself, and just I didn't I wasn't happy, and I thought to myself, this can't be what life is about, right? Like, I couldn't imagine my life in the future just being mad and bitter and like hateful to myself um for the rest of my life, right? There has to be more to life than that.
Uh,
um and so that's when it kind of started switching that mindset. And then something happened also, where um I was working. I actually lived in Chicago for about 13 years, and I was very loyal to a company, and they had restructured, and I was working like 10-hour days, um and for about 12 years. I don't know how I did it, and um I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't enjoying it. And then later they ended up restructuring and um, letting me go. And I was like questioning, why was I doing this, working so hard, for somebody that didn't even, I was replaceable, right? Like,
disposable. You're
and
so
so I was
disposable.
right. And so I'm like, if I was working so hard being miserable, maybe I should do whatever I want that makes me happy, right? And that was kind of like the turning point for me. And so slowly I started to like, because I didn't know what my interests were. Like, I did everything for everybody else, trying to please everyone else. And so slowly I started doing things that were outside of my comfort zone. And uh when I decided to like lose weight on my own. So in 2021, I started on 119, which I didn't know was Quitter's Day, right? But apparently that's Quitter's Day.
Okay.
And so I just started on my own with, you know, I went to my fitness pal and kind of like did their little numbers, and they said, if I eat this amount, then I should lose this amount every week, right? And so that's what I did. And so I just basically wasn't following any kind of macronutrition or protein. I just ate whatever I wanted
Right.
as long as it was below that number.
Yeah, the calories.
And
It was your calorie focused. Yep. Yep.
right. And I did cardio every day, and I did this like Couch to 5K app.
Yes, I've heard of those. Yep. Awesome.
Yeah. And so I ended up losing about 40 pounds on my own um in 2021. But I was so scared I was going to regain it, right? And I was, very heavily following a lot of people on Instagram, and I came across a coach online, and um, I ended up signing up with this coach, and they helped me maintain my weight loss. And basically, they had a at-home program. So I built a little home gym
Yep.
with dumbbells, and they took me through maintenance for an entire year. Um, and
You.
I basically,
Yep.
yeah, I went through maintenance for about a year, and just kind of like learning strength training with dumbbells. I had no clue. I've never done any kind of strength training. And as far as nutrition goes, they put me on uh it wasn't so much a macro based, but they had me focus on getting at least this number of protein, right? So
Nice. So not the
um
coach you have now. This was a different coach.
right, this is a
Okay. Okay.
different coach. And um so they helped me maintain my weight loss that I had done. And I ended up kind of like gaining about 8 or 10 pounds back, but it was more muscle because when I lost it on my own, I had lost a ton of muscle too, right?
Yes.
I wasn't focusing on anything. So I looked pretty
Oh, you were focusing on
deflated.
calories, right? You were focusing on calories and you were focusing on cardio, right? So you were
Right,
focusing
right,
on things. You did all you mean you did that. That's a lot of effort. So you were focusing on things, you just we all don't know what we don't know, right?
right. And the thing with me was I was consistent. I just kept going every day, like because I didn't want to. In the past, I would just stop after it got hard, right?
Yes.
And I'm like, well, what would happen if I just kept going?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
You're right. What but so when they first said you had to be in maintenance for a year, did you freak out? Did you question it or you're just like, no, I'm all in. Like whatever you tell me, I'm
I
gonna do.
was I was all in by then because I was feeling very fatigued. I was actually experiencing some like brain fog too. Like
I'm being like
I wasn't,
too heavily dieted. Like, okay.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And he was like, you need to be in maintenance, and you need protein and to build your
Oh,
strength back up. And that really helped me learn about like the value of protein. But during that time, I was also, following all these accounts, like you said, like the Wonder Women, and it got to the point at the end of 2022 where I felt like I wanted uh, to
level up.
see what more I could do, because I felt like I still wanted to, like, I still had some fat to
Mm.
lose. Um, and so my current coach opened up, and on a whim, I applied, not knowing that I'd ever get um, called or accepted in the program. And, there's this whole application process you have to go through. And
So you applied with the
there
Wonder Woman
was
official then? That was the Wonder Woman official? Or you applied directly with Kara?
no,
Okay.
I applied directly with Caroline because she
Okay.
had said
Left.
she was going on her own,
Okay.
right?
Got it. Got it.
And so, and so, before that, I started doing a lot of things that were outside of my comfort zone. Like the year before that, I never
Oh,
learned how to swim. Like I never knew how to swim. So I went out and I took swimming lessons, right? Um, and
I love
I think that's might have been, one of the reasons that I got accepted, is because I was willing to do those things, get outside my comfort zone. And actually, she's later I found out that she was very intrigued that I went on maintenance for a year. Um, and so she wanted to like talk and learn about that with me and stuff like that. And so, um, yeah, and so this program ended up being kind of like the key to losing another 35 pounds and getting to my goal weight, which was macro-based nutrition. And that
So
was tough.
real quick. So then you had already been in maintenance with your previous coach, right? You're in maintenance, you were feeling better, probably, right? Hormones okay, sleep's okay, because you're eating enough food. You were weight training too as well. And so then you meet Carolyn, you get accepted, and then you start a second deficit, like your next step.
Yeah,
Okay, got it. And so how long was that deficit to lose the next, what did you say, 30 pounds?
35 pounds.
35 pounds. How
And
long?
so I started in December of 2022, and we ended the cut in October 1st of 2023. So however long that is.
Yeah, yeah, nice. And
9 or 10 months.
overall was total weight loss with both coaches then to date is what?
65 pounds.
Amazing. Oh my gosh. So yeah. So what do you think about that? Like, is it sort of like surreal or you're like,
It was very, very surreal. Like every day I would wake up and think I'm back in my
right,
overweight body, right? Like I'd have to like kind of pinch myself to make sure
right.
I didn't regain the weight, right? It's just it was really something that and we can talk about this too, but I struggled in when we ended the cut
Mhm.
because I have, like I said, never really like it was so great to get that, I don't know, high when you lose the weight, right? Like every week I was constantly losing.
Amazing. You're
And
chasing something.
so, yeah, it was hard to switch from losing to like reverse and then seeing the weight kind of creep up again. But the way we kind of tackled that was to like, because we take body measurements as well as weight. And so to get the focus off the weight is to take the measurements first and then the scale.
Hmm.
Um, and so as long as I was maintaining those measurements, I learned that the scale can fluctuate and it's not necessarily a regaining fat, but like water and um, the glycogen
Yeah.
in the muscles and yeah,
So many things, Franca, so many
yeah,
things. Stress, sleep, sodium, your puppy keeping you up. If you have a nice, great macro-friendly salad out, but we can't take out in stuff they use. So many things that really make that number so variable. But it's just a data point, right? So it's
right,
all reminding ourselves that this is one little blip in a whole long line of metrics that we use, right? Yeah.
right. And I force myself to get on the scale when I think that, maybe like you said, I went out and I got that salad or I overate or something. I force myself to get on that scale anyway and try and take the emotion out of it because it really does help you kind of learn what foods and how they affect your body.
Right.
Um, so so I'm really working on taking that emotion out of that in order to, like you said, use it as a data measurement
I love that for
instead of like,
like a blood draining moment. Like I get it. I think a lot of us can relate to it. I think a lot of us too who have struggled with a lifelong weight issue, from small kid time. Um, you're kind of always waiting for the other shoe to drop, like you don't believe it's real, right? But yet
yeah,
you've built up all this body of evidence and work that got you here. But it's that little negative upper limit, right? That's like, no, this is too good to be true. Whatever it's telling you're not worthy. You don't deserve this. This too is gonna be like everything else. And then you apply that to when you have to get on that piece of metal, that real piece of metal. And then you play around with it, you move it around the room, right? You know, that I mean,
You
all
hold
this,
your breath.
yeah. And I think we talked about it yesterday was like when I had first joined TWW and I had thought I had read that was a requirement. You had to measure weigh every day. And I hated the scale at that time. And I was like, no, this is not right. That's a typo. They can't expect me to do that every day. Like, don't they know that this messes with my mental state and they want me to do it every day? And so I was like, oh, I'm gonna get on a call and I know this is a typo and I'm gonna talk to Janelle about it. And she's gonna let me give me a pass because she's gonna see how much it messes with me. And when we got on the call, she said, well, she asked me very nice, insightful questions back, right? And there was that little part of my brain where I knew that the other side that was taking over, the irrational side, I knew I needed to do it to get over this hump, right? And then again, I talk about, like you said, exposure therapy. The more you do it, the less effect it has on you. The more you do it, the more you learn about your body and the fact that that number is very variable. You could do everything right, the number goes up. You could do everything wrong, the number goes down. You could be doing everything right and wrong, and the number stays set, right? But why do we
Yeah.
apply so much emotion to it, right? So I'm glad you did it, but I do recognize that feeling like that, right? And so I always think like, do you have maybe like I don't know, with my clients, I always tell them that if they have difficulty, like say a little affirmation before, right? Whether it's this number does not hold power on me or this number is just a number. Do you have any strategies that you use for yourself or you just kind of get on it, off of it, and then move on?
Yeah, I just kind of get on and get off of it. Sometimes though, if I really feel like I'm struggling, I just won't weigh myself the next day and do it the day after.
Mhm.
I never go more than one day without doing it. Because it really, helps shows trends. Um, but it usually always kind of like, levels out. So, but it's more of a mental thing. Like if I'm feeling like, I really don't want to see that scale number. Because I know if I see it go up and I'm struggling mentally that day, then I might do something drastic, which is restrict,
Right.
and that's not a
Worth
good
it.
thing. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm glad that I always encourage people. You always have to default. You know your body best, right? You're inside your head best. You always have to default with how you feel in that moment, right? Because again, it's not a it's not a make it or break it. If you don't wait today, is that going to kill it? No, that's not going to do. It's nothing, right? It's one day, even if it's
Right.
2 days, right? We all have these busy seasons, like you've experienced how puppy and the weather kind of derailed you. I always try to remember, right? It's never going to be ebb and flow like how we expect, right? There's always going to be something. There's always going to be like no current and then lots of current and then maybe a tidal wave warning or a hurricane and calm seas, right? It's your ability to like, okay, pivot, right? If I can't get it today, then tomorrow or not. But I like how you said hitting on maintenance. And I think that's what when I said I reached out to you, I wanted to talk about that because I do think it's a very something that's not talked about enough in our space with gals going through transformation, with coaches putting people through transformation, this talk of maintenance. And to be honest, when Janelle told me I had to be a year in maintenance, that right side brain of me said, I knew I need that. But the other side said, I'm gonna fire her. I can't do this. Nobody does this. And I'm glad I took the leap of faith because I was like you said, I thought, wow, well, why not? I never did it this way. I know how to diet and lose. My problem is I don't know how to maintain weight loss. So this is probably the key for me. Like I gotta learn this way because it's easy. I realize it's easy to lose. It's much harder to maintain to me. And
Oh,
all things going through maintenance that I thought I wish I knew, I started to talk about when I was going through maintenance because I spent all of 2022 in maintenance. And I said, you know what? Maintenance is you're not going to stay at your same cut weight because your cut weight is the weight you're eating to not eat enough to survive. It sounds comical when I say it out loud, but when you're in it, you expect to stay that cut weight. So then I started to like, okay, so I work with my coach, right? Work with people. And now what I tell is like, oh, it's going to be like a 5 to 8 pound difference. That's going to be that's what maintenance is. And if we set the expectation, your cut weight is this, your maintenance is going to be this range, it helps, I think, navigate our fears, right? Ease our fears. So how long have you been in maintenance now?
So October 1st was the end of my cut, and we've been doing reverse dieting.
Okay.
And so just that was really hard for me, like you said, like seeing the scale go up for the first 2 months. It was hard for me to do my new macros, which were increased, right? So
You were trying to, you didn't want the weight to go up. You were like trying to.
because in my mind, that was, like you said, the smallest, the leanest I have ever been. And I was like, why can't I stay here, enjoy it for a while, right?
Yeah.
But there's a whole like physiological reason why you don't want to stay there, right? Because your body adapts, and you want to be able to be the strongest version of yourself, not the smallest version of yourself. And so in order for me to start so the focus was losing as much fat without losing muscle. And so when we went to reverse, the focus now has been starting to have goals for strength,
Yes.
gaining strength, and each week, PRing in a lift, adding 5 pounds each week to my deadlifts, or so that's kind of like where the focus has been now. And it's been great because when I was in a cut, it was hard to kind of like
Be strong.
PR.
Hard to be strong.
Yeah,
Your body's just trying to
yeah,
survive. And then you're telling
right.
your body like, now we go lift this barbell. They're like, what are you talking about? You want me to what? We want to sit on the couch. You're not even feeding me enough
Right.
to like get off this couch, you know?
Yeah, and so I was also just focused on form, basically, just making sure my form was right and not really heavy lifting. But now, with more macros, I'm able to like lift a little bit heavier.
Yeah.
And so I'm still relatively a new lifter, right? Like, so I'm still learning technique, and I was really scared to go in an outside gym. And that's one of the questions my coach asked, would I be willing to do? Because I don't have a lot of equipment at home to kind of get me to the next level, right?
Yeah.
Like I didn't have a squat rack or anything like that. So she said, if I wanted to like really, really see what I could do, is be willing to go to an outside gym. And I was like terrified, and I crossed my fingers behind my back, and I'm like, yeah, I'll go.
I love that.
Um, and then it came time where she's like, are you ready to go? And so I really, really had to psych myself up for that. And she coached me through it. And after a week of struggling, I felt comfortable. It only took me about a week to get comfortable in the gym. So yeah, that's
I love that.
kind of like where I am.
Everybody's in there just trying to do their own thing, right? And then there's a lot of people that are scared like you, right? To get uncomfortable and to do the thing. But once you get there, especially if you can find a spot, I always tell clients, I've gone to many different gyms. Every different gym has like their different crowd and vibe, So I always tell clients, like I've been working with a client, Christine, now, and I have her, she's had a nice home gym set up, with a squat rack and everything, and all the bells and whistles through COVID. But as an exercise, we're trying to get her out of her comfort zone. And I said, go visit different gyms around your area. There's 4 or 5 close to her. And, she's super scared and we'll talk about it and navigate it. But she's like, there's different groups and different vibes. And I said, yeah, you find your tribe. One of the gyms will have your vibe. And that's, the one that you join. But I love it. I too had a really hard time in maintenance, to be honest. Even though I was heavy my whole life, what I did was I purged through exercise. So I had tried all the bells and whistles. I couldn't be anorexic. I tried to starve myself a lot. I couldn't be bulimic, tried all the things. And I found exercise as my purge. So I was like binging through or purging through exercise. And then at that time, like I had a lot of different emotional stuff going on. And I didn't realize, but I really used it as my distraction, exercise, running marathons and all this stuff. Cause I was like, wow, at the end of the day, you're so exhausted from not eating and doing all this exercise. You don't have to deal with any of the feelings that are coming up.
Right.
And then I was like, you know, got to a point on the hamster wheel after 20 years and just be like, this is, like you said, this can't be the rest of my life. And again, like you, like many of us, something happened pivotal in my life that was devastating. And I just did not have the mental energy or the physical desire to do any of it, and I was like in a real dark abyss for a while and then working with my therapist. And once I came out, I was like, I don't want to do it the same. I want to do it. I need to do it a different way. I need somebody to help me do it sustainable and talk me off the ledge. And then that's when I joined TWW. But so when it came time to make, but it's so easy, like you said, to chase that high, chase that number, especially when the weight comes up and everybody's like making comments and da da da, and you're like,
Yeah.
wow, this is so amazing. You're getting sizes you've never been. I would always have to shop in plus size and da da da. And then they're like, this is gonna happen where you're gonna do everything you have to do, all your habits, but you're gonna maintain your weight and gain weight even a little bit. And it took me seriously, Franca, like 5 months. I was sort of like lost. I felt like lost out in sea. And even as a coach myself, because I'm so goal driven or process driven, like chasing this carrot was like a great, like, it was like my addiction, this thing, right?
Right.
Now I'm like chasing what? Chasing me. And I was really on it. And that's why I started fostering cats. I was like, you got to find a hobby, man, and all this stuff. And then I told her, you know what? Okay, my goal, I want to eat as much food as I can. I was trying to get into the 300-gram carb club. And I was like, I want to lift heavy. I want to do powerlifting. I don't want to compete, but I want to do a powerlifting block. And she was honest with me. It would take 4 months of a specific protocol of the same. And I was like, well, I got time, right? You said a year. Like I got 4 months. That was the big game changer, was when I changed my fixation on the scale and the weight loss and fixated on, okay, this is the lift. This is the lift that I'm trying to, there's a powerlifting block, there's 4 months. I want to get a max 1 rep on this by the month 4, I want to, and that really shifted like my focus. So are you liking, because some of the gals, I'm honest, like some of my client gals, they're not motivated by lifting heavy. Like that's not their thing. So I have to work with them to find other things. So now as you're in a strength performance-based phase, are you excited about this?
Yeah, it was hard for me to get here. But then something happened after 2 months of struggling in my reverse. I had to have a procedure where I had to fast for about 2 or 3 days. And that set me into like, after the 3 days of fasting, it set me into kind of like a binge where like, oh, I can eat whatever I want now. I haven't eaten in 3 days, right? So that set me back also in January. And so I had to put the kibosh on that like a week. um, and so with each phase, something new happens that is thrown at me that is teaching me something, some lesson that I need to learn. That this is constantly going to be, we're constantly going to be challenged by life, right? Whatever happens, like we can have all the routine we want, but some sort of circumstance that isn't expected can come in and really challenge you to see, how much this really means to you. And that's where having a strong why comes in. And for me, um, having a coach to help me. So if you're out there listening, getting a coach like Leanne
Oh, you're so
um, is super
excited.
helpful, and it's an investment in yourself. If you're hesitating on the fence, highly recommend it. Um, because like you said, you don't know what you don't know, and they know they can help you. No.
I mean that, and I've always had
Um,
been a coach as myself. I've always had a coach. I just always recognize, look, there's people that do it better than you. You seek those people out and you learn from them. But I do want to address like how you said, right? Yeah, no matter what your process or your plan is, most days, if we really think about it, it never goes A to Z as perfect, right? And so you learn that what what I hope that people learn is that they're empowered, that they can make decisions on the fly, no matter what happens, in knowing that this is a very not perfect process, which is why I love macros. Because if you learn macros, you learn that it's a very imperfect process, right? If we talk about food labeling and how the FDA says that food labels can be rounded up or rounded down, and it's we have to enjoy life and we have to enjoy celebrations, and local style is very food focused. So we're eating, out or social, which is, we do the best we can. And I love it about macros because it really teaches you when you accept it wholeheartedly that you are just navigating a very imperfect process. So then you release that need for perfection because like, hey, we're just getting as close as we can get. And if we're consistent, getting as close as we can get, we get great results. You've gotten great results, right? You've had bad
yeah.
days, great days, perfect days, not imperfect days. I've had more imperfect days than perfect days. And it's just like, wow, like you said, like what is your secret sauce is if you can be consistent, it'll work. But you gotta chip away at it. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And the beauty about macros is once you really learn them, which I feel like a lot of people struggle. I know I did. It was just seemed like a crazy hard world that I didn't know anything about.
Hey,
And once I learned it, it's super easy to adjust in different phases. Like you don't have to do anything except tweak your recipe, right? Like
just get
it's
more
so
food.
easy. Yeah, it you just adjust more, increase or decrease.
I'm excited for you too, because this is you just kind of, you're getting into it. And when you get into and now that you're adding the strength and you're marrying the strength with the more food, and you're gonna feel that energy boost. I mean, I'm super excited because you're gonna realize, like, yeah, now you're fueling not for fat loss, you're fueling for muscle gain. And that's where the magic happens, is in maintenance, reverse, body recomposition, because now we're giving the body the calories it needs. Muscle is living, fat is not. Muscle needs calories. Specifically, muscle needs a certain amount of protein to build, just like how we make a cake. Kind of need flour. I mean, yeah, we can make a cake with a non-wheat or gluten-free flour, but it's not the same. So we need the protein for to build the muscle. And that's why I always tell the gals, man, just like, yeah, figure it out. So are you like working on some key lifts that fire you up so that we can all rally around you and help you out and give props, and you can reach out to any of us if you have questions. What's your fire up lifts?
So I love the hip thrust. That's like my favorite. And I love working on shoulders.
Oh, good. Okay, nice.
Um, yeah, and deadlifts are one
Okay.
lift that I'm, improving on. Um, bench, I would say, is my most challenging lift.
Okay.
My upper body strength isn't as great. So that's one area of improvement. Um, but it's yeah, I like shoulders and glutes
I
and my
love it.
legs actually. my quads, I'm starting to actually see some definition in my quads, and I have knees.
And that's going to be the amazing thing, right? Like take your picture, stick with that, follow like week by week. In isolation, it doesn't look like anything's happening, right? In an instant, in a present moment. But when you can stack them side by side and you can,
Yeah.
right? And then you're going to be able to tell your coach is going to also be able to see how you build. Because some of us, we all build different, right? Some of us build upper body first, some of us build lower body first. And as you've gone through two deficits, you've kind of seen how your body has lost weight, right? Whether you lose weight, boobs first, butt first, legs first, whatever, right? And all of that is all because of your unique body, right? And then that helps now fuel the programming for what's going to happen on where your weak spots are. So where the attention needs to be to build for the lifts. And then you making sure that you eat your food so that all that energy that you're doing in the gym is for naught. You know what I mean? So what
Yeah.
if you could, I know it's not one thing, but at the top of your mind, if you could pick one thing, what would you say has been the biggest down mover for your results?
Well, this is a tough question.
I
It's
know.
a really tough question.
There's 5 gazillion things, gang. There is.
Um,
Pick one thing.
so for me, I would say macro and learning nutrition to best fuel my body. That's been kind of like a game changer because in the past, I feel like I would always be hungry, and learning the proper fuel food to help me sustain my hunger, and knowing, I've got a meal coming up because the principals are eating 4 or 5 meals a day,
Yep.
right? And it helps me um, stick to my plan.
Yeah.
So I'm able, it helps me be sustainable, right? Um, Whereas before I might have just ate 2 times a day and then be starving the rest of the day. And then maybe the next day I'd go and like binge 1200 in one
Right?
meal.
And that's the downfall of low calorie counting when we just can't count calories. Because I too would do that. I think that's most of us. We're not going to gravitate toward the good for you balanced food like protein, right? And lower fat. If we have like a 1200 calorie diet for fat loss, I remember back in the heyday, there was an online diet thing called e-diets, and I enrolled because you could do a 1200 weight loss on e-diets. You could say all fast food, and it would say Jack in the Box is here. Then you can go to Taco Bell and have this. And I literally did that for like 6 months, right? Not knowing, like, because we don't know any better. Because I was thinking, well, I'm in the 1200 calorie range, but then, like you said, you end up going like, you know, empty calories, processed fast food leaves you hungrier than shit. And then you're like, the rest of the day, you're like starving. And then that you start on this cycle. So I agree with you. And even as a coach, before I used to think nutrition wasn't as big of a factor, but now I'm very honest with clients, especially new clients potentially. I'm like, if you're not willing to work on your food piece, then you we shouldn't work together because you can't all the exercise lifting you can do, if we can't bring this big piece, you're never gonna get the results you're after. Yeah.
Right, right. Like, and you always hear that you lose weight in the kitchen or in
Abs are made in the
and
kitchen.
you
Yeah, yeah.
right. And because I never really understood that, you don't work out to lose weight. You work out to rebuild your body, to like recomp your body. I never understood that. Like,
Right.
so you can lose weight without working out just by not
Starving.
eating as many calories, right?
Well, that's
Um,
what the bad diet marketing has done, right? Kind of sort of we're brainwashed to think that's what we need to do. We need to exercise more and eat less.
right. And that's the problem. That is a huge problem.
That's why I interview people like you so we can help spread the message, spread the
Yes.
macro gospel that gang,
Yes.
we're like not drinking. We've drunk the macro Kool-Aid because we've done the work and we've seen the difference because we've done it all the ways, like you said. You were doing pineapple and cottage cheese. I was doing that cayenne pep lemon thing. You know, you did Weight Watchers. I did Jenny Craig. I also tried HCG drops when they're like, hey, use this pregnancy drops thing to like, you know, I was like, we've tried it all. So if someone was looking to make a change, just as you have done, right? What would be your advice to this person who probably feels like maybe you at one time had felt that they're not going to be able to do it, or they have so much weight to lose that it's impossible? What would, you know, I know it's hard for one piece of advice, but what would you say to this person?
Definitely start with changing your mindset around it. There's two books
Okay.
that I know that we kind of like read, and then one that I read before starting with my coach. But one is called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle,
Yep.
and it teaches you how to be present in the moment, and you know takes away the focus from worrying about the future, or you know kind of like re um hashing the past. Because
Right.
with
Right.
me, like I tend to like think if something bad happened in the past, I tend to like constantly think in my head, try to fix it, like, well, how could I have like fixed it
Changed
or
it.
whatever, changed? Yeah.
So
And
worrying
that,
about spilled milk kind of thing.
yeah. And so that just takes focus from and your energy from the present and focusing on how to move past that. So that's one book that I really feel like helped me stay in the present moment. Um, and then another book that I think you probably read, Atomic Habits by James
Oh,
Clear.
Atomic Habits. Yep. I'm kind of going reviewing that with a network professional group I'm with here about building habits in a business sense, because I work with a lot of entrepreneurs. And so yeah, that's a great, I love Dreams Clear.
Yeah, they are actually really he provides actionable tips that you can actually take and use.
Yep. I like
um
how, and I like his takeaway. I think people always, which is was myself for so long. He says when people are trying to change an undesirable habit, they tend to remove it completely, right? He's like, we try to eliminate it, right? But I think he says, like, no, we need to find a workaround. It's out of removing it is sort of like the easy part, but that's why it doesn't ever work. And we just try to like cut it out, a bad habit completely. He's like, you have to preload it or something with a better habit. And then slowly that will replace the old habit. So you're not cutting it out and throwing it away. You're finding something to replace it, and eventually it'll fall off or something like that, right?
yeah, it's great.
Okay.
And like also building a reward system. So for me, I
Ah,
used it to kind of help me start working out in the morning because I hated getting up in the morning. It was just so hard for me to get up in the morning to work out.
yeah.
I just wanted to sleep in. And so my coach was like, well, think of a time that you were excited to get up.
Okay.
And, for most of us, that's like when you're going on a trip or vacation, right? Like,
Yeah.
heck, I'll wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning to do that, to get ready for that. So if I can get up, obviously it's not a physical thing, it's just a mental thing, right? Like if I can get up during that, I have to make it fun for myself. So reward myself in some way. And for me, that was workout clothes.
I love that. Yes, I've seen your outfits, girl. I love it.
So, as I've lost weight, I've, just rewarded myself with that. And just every time I would get up in the morning, I would take kind of like a selfie, and that would, one, hold myself accountable. And two, it just made me kind of document my journey. And that's kind of like how I started documenting the journey, right?
Love that.
And it
It works.
it it worked. Like
I
for
love
me, I'm very much treat motivated.
Yeah, no, we're all different. Yeah, and that's it. But what I love about it, which is what I want to bring a highlight to, is that you're very when we started, you said you're very solution oriented, right? And I think when people hire a coach, yes, you can get a plan and a program, but ultimately you have to take the responsibility to execute. And your coach, even though they may be accessible to you and reachable, they're not with you every minute and the hour of the day. So at the end of the day, you have to figure out how to be sort of self-driven and be able to self-pivot and navigate on your own. So the fact that you've created a reward system for yourself in order to do something that was hard for you is very commendable, because not a lot of people have that ability, right? To be able to be like, I want to do this hard thing. So how do I get from here to there? Most people are like, oh, it's too hard. I can't, right? How many times do we hear people say, oh, I'm not a morning person, or I'm not a salesperson, or they identify as something they are not, and they've taken on that identity, and literally the wiring in their brain, all the messages they've imprinted now feeds that belief that I am not. But you found a workaround.
Yeah, that's all about those limiting beliefs, right? Which um kind of like a good segue is another book, The Mountain is You, right? Like how to get past those limiting beliefs
Say
about
that again,
yourself.
that book name again.
The Mountain is You.
The Mountain is You. I haven't heard of that one. I have to check that out.
Yeah, that's a really good one. And it really helps you kind of break through and challenge those beliefs about ourselves that we've created narratives of and stories about ourselves in the past. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, like I never ever saw myself as an athlete, right? And um when my coach took me on, and I forget, she gave me some feedback about something about, oh, I remember when I was learning macros, I had programmed a snack meal. And she's like, we don't do snacks, we do meals. and and she said, you're an athlete now,
Yep.
and you need to fuel your body. And that was really hard for me because I never ever thought of myself as an athlete. um but then I looked a definition up of an athlete, and what does it say? Someone who works out, someone who is consistent, someone who is goal driven. Like, so I'm like, I do all those things. Just because I'm not competing doesn't mean I'm not an athlete, right? So once I kind of started getting comfortable with that, it actually, helped me um, change my identity. And that's kind of like what you have to do to keep going, and to live this lifestyle, because, you know, this is it. Like it doesn't end. What you do to lose the weight is what you have to do, continue on to keep it off, right? So do something that you really like, um, that's
Sustainable.
sustainable.
Yeah. I don't know if you know David Goggins, Dave Goggins. I listened
Yeah,
to him on Huberman Lab recently. I love Dave Goggins. Kind of like, I'm like, I
yeah.
want Dave Goggins to like train me for a race. And he had talked about that very thing, how, we hear all these self-help books and say you have to identify as the identity or the person that you want to be in the future, your future self, and adopt all those habits that future self that you want to be, what would they be doing? You need to do them now, even though you feel like you're 500 miles away from that. Well, David Goggins just puts explicit lyrics onto that, right? And he's like, I had to kill myself, my old self. I had to
Yeah,
mourn myself and mourn the comfort of all those behaviors that weren't serving me anymore. And I had to adopt this new identity, and I had to think, what would this future Dave Goggins do as he's like 300 plus pounds, Dave Goggins trying to change, right? And he said, waking up in crazy winter to run, and all his skin would be rubbing and chafing because he was so, big, and he would be like burning. And so it's true, right? Like you have to think about where you want to be and adopt that. And when you start to really believe it, all your habits start to fall in line. And that's what I love about athletic mindset. I had met a wonderful gal at the gym as a young Leanne when I was on my crazy, like on the Stairmaster for 2 hours trying to lose weight. She was a crazy runner lady. Her name was Kathy. She was like 15 or 20 years my senior. She's like, "You're strong. You should come run with me." And I was like, wow, no adult has ever like approached me to be like, I could do something athletic, like never. I never played a sport or anything. And she said, so I went out and ran with her. And then she just sort of mentored me. And she started to get me to do these races, which I thought, what the heck? No way can I do a race. And then she taught me that when you have somebody sort of like that has a belief in you, that kind of nurtures this little belief and shows you a method, and that you're consistent with the method, if you keep showing up, that you can too be this thing. And so for the longest time I would say, I'm not a runner, I'm too heavy to be a runner. And I couldn't wear running shorts and all this stuff. And she was like, yeah, you're a runner. And then it took me a long time, but then you started to believe it. And then I was like, okay, so what
Yeah.
do runners do? Oh, they go to sleep early, and then they wake up early, and then they run in the morning, and then they eat carbs. And I was like, I'm not going to eat carbs. What? You know? But it is so true, the identity. So how is Franca living her best life now as an athlete with an athlete mindset?
So I just am so happy because um now that I don't really have to focus on my weight loss or losing any weight anymore, it's kind of like you said, a little death almost. Like, what do you do with yourself, right? Like now I don't have an excuse. I don't have that thing where I'm constantly worried about losing
Yep,
weight,
carrot.
right?
Yep.
So it's like another thing where you just get to live your life,
And
right? Like,
yes, you get to have fun
and
and not have to obsess about dieting.
yeah, it's honestly, it's still a very new concept for me. Like I said, I still have to wake up and pinch myself that, you know, I'm not, 30 pounds overweight again, right? But yeah, like now I can focus on what really interests me, like what
What
I
fires
like to
you up?
do.
Yeah. And what is it?
Yeah.
It's working on your freaking hip thruster, getting 300 pounds of that bad boy.
It's clothes, like being able to buy new clothes that fit me and going in the closet and knowing that whatever I pull out will fit. Like it's not, it's made me more confident. Like it's made me accept things that I didn't think I would. Like here I am with you talking, um, to someone like you who is amazing and
Oh,
inspiring, who has just gone through so much herself, right? That I'm talking, I have a seat at the table with
my God,
amazing people, right?
you always, and that's what I want to instill to people. You didn't have to do all that to have a seat at the table, friend. You always deserved a seat at the table. And that's what I want to spread the message to, that you don't need to go through an epic transformation. You just got to figure out how to enjoy your life and love yourself no matter what, right? To be able to feel like you need to have a seat at the table. But what I know is I'm not special. People think, oh, I'm trainer, coach, or whatever. I'm very honest that I got into coaching many moons ago out of very disordered body, disordered food and fitness mindset, because it was like, wow, I get paid to have to diet and exercise and tell people to do that. Amazing, right? But it was from a very dark place. And it took me a while to really like evolve and grow as not only an athlete myself, but as a better coach, because I was a really shitty coach in the beginning, just doing all the things that they teach you, right? Eat less, exercise more. but I feel like I've never been especially like talented or never played a sport or never spoke a language, but I'm have grit. Like I'm consistent. Like you tell me I can't do something, I'm gonna be like, I will do it. Like, and that drive is what kept me going. But that's what I like to tell people and meet people like you, because I feel like you just need whatever it is. Like you said, you had some turning points. Some people it's a nudge from a friend. Some people it's hiring that first coach. Some people it may be watching this YouTube video of us talking to inspire them to like take that little get started switch, right? And then to change that trajectory of the rest of their life. Like how I feel indebted to my friend Kathy, who many moons ago, I always tell her when she was here with us, we lost her to cancer, unfortunately. I always told her, like,
I'm so
wow,
sorry.
thank you. But if it wasn't for you to instill this athlete, because she was the one that helped instill the athlete mindset in me, I would have never been here. I would still be working my advertising media planner job in a cubicle as a dinosaur, hating my job like everybody else I worked with when when I worked there. Right? Like how you were saying when you were at your other job. So I love that. So any thoughts you want to leave our viewers with?
So yeah, just before I do, I just feel like what you just said, like sorry, I don't know what that was, but
All right,
um
chill.
you you've gone through it all, right? Like so that makes you so relatable. And
Oh,
I feel like I'm I'm drawn to people like you because, I feel like it's within reach to myself as well as others. Because
it is.
um
That's what I want people to know. It is. There wasn't like, you know, there wasn't like I was a former athlete or, anything like that. I just, like I said, but I think what it came down to is I really was fueled by, if I commit to it, I know I could do it. Like I'm not the fastest, strongest, smartest, most pretty, but I have tenacity. And that's kind of like the little thing that I think kept me pushing along, you know?
yeah, and like look at you, like you're amazing. Like
Yes.
you're
Thank you. You're amazing too, which is why I wanted you to have on. So how can we best like support you? What are you thinking about maybe doing a powerlifting competition or no, a photo shoot? I know you did one, another one.
yeah, I did do a photo shoot to celebrate kind of like
Your hard work.
my goal.
You're
Yeah, and that was so much fun. Another thing that was outside my comfort zone. So, yeah, if you follow me on Instagram and something I do or say inspires you in some way, or you feel the need to reach out, I love answering questions or just supporting um, people who were just like me in the beginning who didn't know where to start.
I love that.
Yeah, so yeah.
We started with you saying one of your passion projects is to spread positivity. So I feel like we need to like hashtag this and we need to start something. You need to start something. Passion for positivity or
Okay.
something. Yeah, let's let
Oh,
you
I like that.
you sit on it. I think we need a t-shirt too, sister. Uh yes, same.
Yeah.
Franca is so open. She's always such a delight to talk with in the Instagram messages. She's very forthcoming. So if you have any questions at all about any of it, please feel free to reach out because again, it's sort of like it takes one to know one kind of thing, right? And we know the struggle. It's not the same struggle. But it's different, but it is sort of the same where, I think we are brought together by this amazing thing that is macros and muscles and lifting for to age well and thrive and be strong versus just chasing, like you said at the start, chasing small and staying small and playing small, spreading the power of
Right.
taking up space and doing things outside of our comfort zone because I mean everything is possible. right?
Yeah, and the power of community, right? Like everyone is just so uplifting and supportive of each other, which is another thing that I was, so happy to see, and just empowering people to help themselves, right? Like not just be given something like some sort of like framework and you follow that framework, but being more empowering, um, which is like, teaching people to help themselves kind of in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, and again, like you said, the power of with the backbone of the power of the community, which everybody is sort of like they want to everybody wants to see everybody win, you know?
Yeah.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for spending so much time with me. I super appreciate it, gang. I will put all the information on where you can find Franca on the show notes. Stay tuned. This is going to release on Monday, so I'm super excited. And everyone, have a great day. Bye.
Thank you so much, Leanne.
You're very welcome. So I'll just
Bye.
stop.